Hello, I'm Dr. Joe Arminio. Welcome to my channel, America Resurgent, with myself as host. In this video, I ask one of the burning questions of our time. What is the Israeli Prime Minister hiding? What doesn't Netanyahu want us to know about his country's disaster on October 7, 2023? The answer may be staggering. At the end of this video, I draw some vital conclusions as well. Before I go any further, I ask you to like this video and subscribe. This channel is a serious effort, the product of a team versed in public policy, history, and economics, and doing all we can to defend the Republic and roll back big government and big business. Help us help you get to the bottom of tough issues. Now let's get started. Never before have so many Israelis and Americans as well asked so many tough questions of the Israeli government. It all started with the horrific October 7 Hamas attack. 4 days ago, Netanyahu's coalition defeated yet another vote in the Knesset, calling for a state investigation into the events of that Black Day. Netanyahu is practically the only one left standing in Israeli ruling circles who was in charge on that fateful day in October. Virtually every other major political figure and virtually every high-ranking military officer who were in charge that day have resigned, and in most cases not without profuse apologies. Why won't Netanyahu allow an investigation of Israel's posture in the lead up to October 7? October 7 is Israel's 9/11. A lot of grieving and upset Israelis are clamoring for the truth regarding that day. The more that Netanyahu stonewalls about that day, the more that suspicions grow. The worst suspicion involves a false flag. Might he and a cabal of intriguers have deliberately allowed Hamas to penetrate the Gaza security perimeter and to wreak murder and mayhem and seize hostages in order to justify the ultimate reprisal, the emptying of Gaza of Palestinians, whether by death or expulsion? Israel's savage conduct of the Gaza war, many observers accuse the IDF of genocide, adds fuel to the false flag theory. It is clear that Netanyahu has no love lost for the inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. Still, I have a hard time believing that any Israeli leader would deliberately expose his or her own citizens to attack if it could be at all avoided. This brings me to a crucial assumption that seems to have been making the rounds since news of the Hamas atrocity came over the wires. Surely, so goes this assumption, Hamas could only have succeeded on that day of infamy if they had been allowed to succeed. The late Charlie Kirk, to name one prominent observer, contributed, whether wittingly or not, to the spreading of this assumption. Within a few days of the attack, Charlie Kirk asked before a national U.S. audience if a, quote, stand-down order, unquote, had been given to Israeli forces along the Gaza security perimeter. Putting this question in context, Kirk observed that Israel is, quote, built like a fortress, unquote, and, quote, by far the most alert country in the world, unquote. If Israel was indeed so secure, how could the far weaker non-state actor Hamas wreak the devastation that they did in the absence of the IDF standing down? It turns out that Israel wasn't so secure on that October 7. Far from it. It's not that a stand-down order was given, however. Rather, Israel's entire defense posture was fundamentally suspect. This hasn't gotten much coverage over here in the United States. This fundamental weakness may be precisely what Netanyahu is trying to cover up. The IDF relied for years upon a very peculiar strategy to defend the country from Hamas. I am talking about an acute reliance, better to say over-reliance, upon high tech to make up for the paltry human forces that they had deployed vis-a-vis Hamas. I can assure you that Israel, with U.S. backing, spent plenty of money on high tech, but look at how few Israelis actually barred the door between the Gaza Strip and that adjacent portion of Israel called the Gaza envelope. The Gaza envelope shares a 60-kilometer border with the Gaza Strip and has a depth of 7 kilometers. On the morning of the October 7 attack, there were 2.3 million pent-up Palestinians in the Strip facing a mere 767 Israeli active-duty personnel, 13 tanks, and 70,000 Israeli civilian settlers in the Gaza envelope. Talk about a mismatch in numbers. The balance of forces is hardly much better, even taking into account Israeli reservists among the 70,000 and IDF military aircraft suitable for airstrikes against attackers on foot. Typically, 1 in every 20 Israelis is in the reserves. The IDF may have had 15 Apache helicopters on alert to defend not only the Gaza envelope, but the rest of the country. These 15 helicopters were asked to defend the 60-kilometer Gaza front and another nearly 1,000 kilometers facing 5 hostile Arab neighbors, much stronger than Hamas, by the way, and vulnerable beaches. The crux of Israel's Gaza military strategy was to rely enormously on high-tech systems. If these systems were neutralized, there would be hell to pay. Given the meager numbers of Israelis, active duty, reservists, and civilians dwelling in the Gaza envelope, and given the handful of military aircraft in support. On the other side of the military ledger were the teeming masses of Gaza Palestinians. Several millions of very highly motivated Palestinians burning for revenge, I might add. And there were certain military assets, important assets, at the disposal of Hamas. Above all, I cannot say enough about this. They benefited from a new, dazzling technology, commercial drones. And Hamas had one other advantage, time. The IDF may have thought that Hamas merely rotted away under siege. Instead, Hamas could put their captivity inside the Strip to good effect, studying the lessons of prior conflicts, especially involving drones in the Strip itself, in Iraq, the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and in and around Ukraine, and studying every aspect of their Israeli adversary. A wide array of investigators external to the Netanyahu regime have uncovered a wealth of relevant information surrounding the lead up to, the day of, and the immediate aftermath of the Hamas breakout from Gaza. The upshot of all these investigations, including first-hand testimonies and video footage, points to the achievement of a stunning surprise. Hamas waged a brilliant new kind of war on the day of the breakout from the Gaza Strip. They combined clever intelligence gathering, several thousand commandos, indirect artillery, rocket and mortar fire, and drones in a novel, exotic, and quite deadly way. It was the use of drones that was the most shocking of all. These drones neutralized the IDF's counter-drone forces, blinded or disrupted IDF observers and sensors, even destroyed or suppressed IDF armored vehicles, and guided Hamas commandos to their targets or crucially assisted the assault in other ways. Complementing the use of drones was putting the good old-fashioned art of war to deadly effect. Hamas concentrated its commandos at a few key points in the breakout from the Strip. It achieved crushing numerical superiority at these points. It then exploited these breaches with great daring. What the public record seems to be saying is this: Israel was not invincible in the lead up to that fateful day in October. Hamas brilliantly exploited Israel's weakness. And consider this too. The history of war is replete with instances of hubris. Israel had been lording it over the Palestinians for more than 90 years, dating back to the Arab Revolt of 1936. The IDF was confident in its military prowess, especially vis-a-vis an opponent who was bereft of anything resembling a modern military. If indeed Hamas beat Israel like an Arab version of David beating Goliath, what follows? I suggest that Israel was doubly mortified. Netanyahu in particular suffered a compound mortification. For one thing, there was a scale of the massacre and disaster. It was by far the greatest Jewish calamity since the Holocaust. For another thing, the disaster wasn't supposed to happen. Indeed, the IDF was beaten at its own game. It was beaten in the realm of high tech. The whole world saw it. the world's military, state, and sub-state actors alike saw it especially. Israel's vaunted deterrent was shattered on that October 7. This, I suggest, accounts for the ferocity of their response in Gaza. It pushed them not only to act feverishly to reestablish their deterrent, to retaliate ferociously, but to go over the edge into what more and more are saying is genocide. What conclusion should America take from all this? We just might be out of time. Israel's heavy reliance upon high tech to defend itself, not only vis-a-vis Hamas, but vis-a-vis all its neighbors and throughout the Middle East, just might be at an end or nearing the end. Can Israel hold up much longer without exposing large numbers of its military personnel to devastating attacks? Can it remain overbearing in the region without significantly greater and far more costly U.S. involvement? Is Israel's present war policy as a whole even opening up, in effect, some giant trap door through which we, America, not just our ally Israel, could fall? The time for half measures to quell the Arab-Israeli conflict, lest a far, far worse conflagration breaks out to the demise of the world, may be at an end. The time to ignore legitimate grievances on both sides of the conflict, to dampen emotions on both sides, might be at an end. Is the present Gaza peace plan yet another half measure? It might well be. I doubt that Netanyahu dared resort to, let alone even consider resorting to, a false flag over Gaza. I doubt that incompetency suddenly struck the otherwise able IDF, resulting in a bone-headed stand-down order. Instead, it may have been a matter of a colossal, arrogant belief in Israel's peculiar military posture, which in turn Israel's Gaza inmates exploited to an astonishing degree. I think this ignorance is part of what Netanyahu is trying to cover up. Another part is the over-reliance on machines to do the work of soldiers, sailors, and airmen. A third part is a false bargain wherein Israel is told it can be great while few of its citizens disrupt and risk their lives at the front.